So, hello, Ajahn Kim. We are Group 8, and today we'll be talking about the Tom Yam Goong crisis of 1997, or more specifically, how the media helped people into either understanding the financial situations and preventing them from making bad financial decisions. So, let's have a little bit of an introduction. So, my name is Bunya Gonchas, and I'm going to be handling the introduction of our project today. So, the focus of our research is to be examine the role that the media played during the Tom Yum Goong crisis in 1997. And we're going to be focusing on how various forms of communication, particularly the television, the radio, or newspapers, some things like that, and how they shaped the public's understanding of the financial situations and influenced their responses to it. So, the goal of our research is to explore how the media acted as both an informative force and as a social catalyst during the economic turbulence. So, guided by theoretical concepts such as Edmund Carpenter's language of medium and Stephen Sapin's What Else Is New, this study will analyze how the characteristics of different media shape the ways that people received and, by addition, make sense of the information that they were given. So, to explore these questions, our group have conducted interviews with the individuals who personally experienced the Tom Yam Goong crisis firsthand. And including the participants from both the urban and provincial backgrounds. Like their reflections reveal not only how people access information, but also how the media mediated their emotions, anxiety, and social relationships during that turbulent time. So, to begin, we'll first provide you with an overview of the historical, political, and media landscapes that Thailand was during the 1990s to set the stage for the discussion of course, how media behaved during that crisis, and of course, to set up how the crisis came to be itself.
In the 1990s, Thailand was experiencing one of its fastest periods of economic growth in the history. Foreign investment flowed in, skyscrapers were rising, and stock and real estate market were booming. Thailand is aiming to be the next and fifth Asian tiger. With the Thai baht fixed to the US dollar, investors felt confidence and people increasingly believe in the modern lifestyles centered around wealth, consumptions, and rapid success. But the growth has its weakness beneath the surface. Many companies rely on foreign loans, and the boom was driven by speculations rather than strong foundations. By mid 1997, investors realized that Thai businesses could not pay their debt. On July 2nd, 1997, the government was forced to float the Thai baht, causing its value to crash by more than half. Banks failed, company shutdowns, and unemployment spiked. Thailand has to accept major IMF bailout to survive. The economic crisis quickly became a social and cultural crisis. The shock reminded people that fast modernizations could be fragile. Bangkok, as the economic center, dominates news and information, so urban residents reacted faster, while many rural families were hit indirectly through job losses and reduced income sent from the city. The crisis exposed deep inequality between rural and urban lives that have been growing increasingly and quietly during the years. We picked this event because the Tom Yam Goong crisis is a historical event that unfolded during the transition periods of Thai media, when televisions, radios, and printed media is still dominate daily life, but internet had not yet shaped information flow. This makes it a unique moment to see how traditional media influence public understanding, emotional, and behavior during the national crisis. They then help examine and understand how media shape national perception in real time, differences in media access and inequality, and show a moment before social media.
All right. I will be talking about the theoretical framework used to conduct these interviews about how people receive the news about Tom Yam Goong crisis. When we talk about media during the Tom Yam Goong crisis, we're using three main concepts to understand how communication worked in 1997. First, Edmund Carpenter's language of medium, which explains that each medium communicates differently. TV mixes visual and sound. Radio communicates only through audio, and newspaper rely on text. This mattered because each medium shaped how people understood the crisis. TV made the situation feel immediate and serious. Radio gave fast updates throughout the day, and newspaper provided slower but trusted analysis. Second, we use the idea of wireless world, which explains how broadcast technologies like radio and TV could spread information quickly even without the internet. In 1997 Thailand, the internet wasn't widely available, so wireless broadcasting was the fastest way news moved from Bangkok to the rest of the country. And finally, we use Steven Chapin's What Else Is New, which reminds us that technology doesn't have power on its own. Its impacts depends on how people trust it and use it daily. During the crisis, people relied on TV, radio, and newspaper automatically as of part of their routine. So people see those mediums and it shaped how they understood what was happening. These concepts connect directly to our topic because they help explain how the older generation actually received the news in pre-internet world. For example, my mom said that she mainly watched TV during the evening and read the newspaper in the morning and listen to radio updates while driving. Another example is Goody's grandmother. She stated that she also relied on TV first and then newspaper for explanation and radio when she was outside or working. All three interviews show the same pattern. TV was the most dominant source because it combined speed and visual. Radio acted as the fast update, and newspaper provided depth. These different mediums shape people's perception, how quickly they felt the crisis was spreading, how serious it seemed, and what emotions experienced. People in Bangkok might hear updates earlier, while those in provinces relied on more evening broadcasts. These ideas guide our analysis because they tell us exactly what to focus on in interviews. We look at which medium each person relied on, why they trusted that medium, how those mediums shape their understanding of the crisis, what's the limits of pre-internet communication. And the pattern is we see that the pre-internet era, people had to rely on these mediums and had to rely on the media because there was no other alternative source. So it was their daily routine too. So people can only understood things by watching, reading, or listening to the TV, radios, and newspaper. And most importantly, these concepts help us compare 1997 communication with today. Our interviewees all said the same thing. If the crisis happened now, social media would exaggerate everything. For example, in the big 25, AI is a big thing. Sora AI, ChatGPT, they can all create fake news and make it seem like it's real. Misinformation would spread faster, and emotions are like fear and panic would be stronger. Like in 1997, people relied on real source TVs and radios. So people understood because these things are just here to state what is happening to the country, not to exaggerate the emotions. So the media back then feels like it's more structured and it creates like a shared understanding, even if it wasn't perfect. People can talk about it and people all relied on the same source. And that is why it was more structured. And thank you.
So everybody, here are the list of our interviewees. Our group chose to interview the group members' relatives as a method of collecting data on the Tom Yam Goong crisis. The interviewees are of the generation that have personally experienced and lived through the crisis, providing a personal recollection directly from first-hand experience. The Tom Yam Goong crisis was not only a financial event that affected our country economically, but was also a major media event that was shown in many communication platforms such as television, newspapers, radio, and more. Having occurred before the digital era, Primary sources and online archives are limited and often lack personal insights. Interviewing the members' relatives who have lived through the crisis provides a genuine outlook into media consumption and the media structure of that time. The purpose of the interview is to understand how people got information and how it influenced their perception of the crisis. So the questions were designed with the intention of guiding the interviewees with reflecting on their own experiences with different media platforms, such as the timing and reliability of the information that they were presented with, or how they shared the news with family or friends. In this way, by gathering information through direct interaction, we are able to get a sense of the emotional environment of that time, how people felt when they first heard the news, how they understood the crisis, and what they recalled about other people's reaction. The dynamic between urban and rural experiences among the interviewees helped broaden the scope of the event, giving a clearer picture of the differences in media reach and consumption between urban and rural areas. The presentation of both perspectives also continues to inform us how differences in media infrastructure and access affected the movement of information, especially at that time. These depictions offer a better sense of how people from diverse environments reacted and experienced the media coverages. Ultimately, this method helped bridge individual experiences with broader media history, providing a richer and more nuanced understanding of how the crisis was communicated, perceived, and remembered across different communities around Thailand. It also gives insight into everyday experiences of media consumption of the people at that time, showing how individuals navigated uncertainty and made sense of rapidly changing information. This approach overall brings in a range of perspectives from different generations, location, and social backgrounds to provide a more comprehensive and human-centered view on the crisis and its media consumption.
For our research methods and data collection, our goal is to understand not only what people remembered about the Tom Yam Goong crisis, but how different groups accessed and interpreted media during that period. To do this, we conducted semi-structured interviews with 5 individuals who lived through the crisis, each from different ages, occupations, and locations across Thailand. This method allowed us to capture both factual recollections and emotional responses, and to compare how media experiences differed between urban and provincial settings. Across all interviews, we found a very consistent pattern. Television was the dominant and most trusted medium. Every interviewee mentioned TV as their primary source for learning about the crisis. For example, one interviewee who was a university student in Rangsit recalled that almost every house had a TV, and that news broadcasts were simply accepted as true because there weren't many alternative sources. Another interviewee who worked in Bangkok's business district also described relying on TV for daily updates and afternoon news, showing that television played a central role across both age and class groups. Newspapers and radios appeared as secondary but still important platforms. Interviewees from Bangkok ranked newspapers as behind television, while those outside the capital recalled hearing about the crisis frequently on local radio stations. One provincial interviewee explained that in rural areas, many older adults preferred radio because literacy rates were lower and newspapers were less accessible. This highlights a clear urban-rural media divide, where Bangkok residents had more media options, while rural communities depended more heavily on audio-based information. Another key finding is the limited role of the internet. Every interviewee emphasized that computers were rare, expensive, and difficult to use. Internet cafes existed, but very few people relied on them for news. This reflects Chapin's argument that technologies gain meaning based on everyday use. In 1997, the internet may have existed, but it did not yet have social relevance for ordinary citizens. People depended on mass media, not because it was innovative, but because it was what they already trusted and understood. When we were asked about the tone of media coverage, responses varied depending on personal circumstances. Interviewees who were students or did not own businesses reported minimal emotional impact. Media exposure made them aware but not fearful. In contrast, interviewees connected to business sectors described needing to adapt, reducing spending, or pay closer attention to financial developments. This reflects how media acted not just as an information source, but also as what we would call an emotional infrastructure, shaping people's feelings and behaviors during uncertainty. Finally, we asked all interviewees to reflect on hypothetical scenarios. How would the crisis have unfolded if social media existed back then? Most believe that information would have spread faster, but also the misinformation and panic could have increased. This contrast shows how the limited media landscape of the 1990s produced a more unified narrative, whereas today's media environment might produce fragmented interpretations. Our interview data reveals a clear picture. Media consumption in 1997 was highly centralized, dominated by television and shaped by the technological limitations of the time. Access varied by class, region, and occupation, but the shared reliance on the broadcast media created a common national experience of the crisis. These findings formed the foundation for our analysis of how media technologies shaped public understanding during the Tom Yum Goong crisis.
In conclusion, the Tom Yum Goong crisis heavily damaged Thailand's economy, but it is important to mention that the main mediums, televisions, were able to report the financial events throughout the disastrous crisis in real time. As many interviewees reported using television as a base medium. Moreover, during the crisis, Thai civilians and foreigners are able to acknowledge useful financial news on many series of media, such as televisions or an alternative like radios and newspaper, alongside with wireless media that aids the information delivery precisely. This significantly helped Thailand to recover from drastic setbacks from the consequences of failed investment and provide a new worldview in finance during the period. Ultimately, the oral media successfully collects the masses' attention to easily follow economic news and shift understanding with an engagement from the issue of uncertainties. Without the media to spread awareness, the situation may have worsened Thailand's economy further. And finally, the aim of this paper is to convey how television, radio, and newspaper, or mediums in general, have functioned as an essential medium in restoring Thailand's economy from the Tom Yum Goong crisis.